We're discussing
We'll call
dogs.
this meeting to order.
We're discussing our dogs. It's very important.
I know.
Get him started.
Julie McDonald,
Here.
Jim C.,
Here.
Millie Schoonover,
Here.
Michael Campbell,
Here.
Timothy O'Connor.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to consent agenda.
Move to adopt,
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Motion's been made to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay.
Motion's been seconded to adopt the consent agenda.
I'm terribly sorry, Mayor. I'm supposed to call the missing members. I thought I was supposed to skip them, so my
Okay,
fault.
let's go back to that.
Okay, I'm very sorry. Okay, so Hannah Bezanet
Absent excused.
and Chanel McKinley.
Absent excused.
Thank you.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to adopt the consent agenda.
Millie made it.
Millie.
Mike seconded it.
Is that all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed?
I didn't vote for all in favor, I'm sorry.
No.
Aye.
You'll catch up. You got that one?
Yeah, she's helping me.
Good job. All right, we're hearing from the public now. Open for public comment. Anybody on the phone? Hearing no one, seeing no one. We're moving on. Ordinance number 736, updating section 3.10 with the Craig Municipal Code.
Mayor, I think we can drop to the reports.
Okay, we'll just do that. Sounds good. Mary's been busy, put it that way. I got hacked, so don't answer none of my emails.
Just-
Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, thanks. Members of the council, good evening. I sent out, included a staff report in the packet, and I sent out an update yesterday by email. Just want to touch on a couple of things. One is the power roof is finished, and the council appropriated up to $30,000 to help contribute toward the cost. The cost was actually around 41. Power's prepared to share the cost with the city, so if Power is comfortable with it, I would suggest we split the cost down the middle, each contribute half, but I wasn't sure if the council was okay with that or wanted the full 30,000 to go toward project costs. So I guess on that note, just need to know your preference, if we should put up the whole 30 or split it with Power.
I mean, they've raised enough funds that they're okay to split it?
My initial conversation with Victoria, who's on the phone, that's my understanding, yes.
Victoria, do you have anything to add?
Well, we have been fundraising for quite some time, and we do have money, but we would like to spend as much as that we have on helping the community. But if you guys want us to pay for half, we will do that. Of course, I'd like you to pay the whole 30, because it would be easier. But we will split it. Whatever you decide, we very much appreciate it.
I have a question for Victoria. Victoria, this is Jim. Do you have any plans to do some windows or siding or anything else on at least a couple of sides of the building at a time?
Well, what I would like to do, since I'm broken and can't do much else, is start looking at grants. The problem we had with the Rasmussen Foundation grant is that the city has to apply for the grant because they own the building. So we can do some of the groundwork for it, but it has to be a city application for that. I think a little bit of paint would hold it together for a little bit. One of my volunteers had suggested that perhaps we go ahead and ask the mill for some cedar shapes and siding. I don't know if we want to do cedar. It would have to be a joint adventure with the city, since the city does own the building. But yeah, as long as at the top, we should start dressing the old gal up.
Should we paint it red?
I don't think John will let me, but be nice. We don't care, just as long as it works.
Okay,
I think John's looking for an answer.
yes, he is.
I think if they have the money right now, split, but I think we're gonna end up helping them. I'd like to see the windows on the south side at least, and some siding on that side to, at some point, because the fur inside is still reasonably good. But for how much longer is the question? You know, a layer of something, I don't know.
Why don't we kick in 25 and retain 5 for future upgrades to the building? That we were doing a little more than half and save some in reserve.
I'm fine with that. They don't waste money.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of good in the community.
Victoria, do you think that would be fair? We'll contribute 25,000 and retain 5,000 for some future upgrades for windows and whatnot for the building?
I think it sounds fantastic. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. And then I mentioned in my email a meeting with representatives from Sealaska Corporation, scheduled for a week from tomorrow. Well, I was scheduled for next week, and I in email correspondence with folks from Sealaska, we set the meeting up for June 11th at 10 a.m. The mayor and I will be there in my office. Council members want to join. Feel free to let me know. Sealaska wants to talk about continued economic development options for the island in light of the STC moving out of the timber business. So just the FYI, we'll be meeting then. Happy to answer any questions.
The one comment I have is on the rack thing. If we have $500,000 to allocate towards Prince of Wales, we don't need to be, you're right, you need to push the Forest Service, and maybe we need to do a resolution to push the Forest Service to make a rack for Prince of Wales. We don't need to be combined with Franklin or Ketchikan or somebody else.
It's my preference too.
Yeah, I mean, we need to push.
I think it's, the Forest Service is inclined to consolidate from however many there are, 7 or 8 down to 3, I think, 3 or 4 maybe, because for the administrative load that they have. But we're accustomed to having, I guess I won't go into it. It's just organizing the RAC is subject to these federal rules that are hard to comply with given our population. And that's true for a number of other communities as well. So they have difficulty recruiting applications, multiple applications for the 15 available seats. And apparently through some administrative decision, it's going to be more difficult than it used to be. But in principle, I'm with you, Jim.
Well,
It's better to have a Prince of Wales-based RAC to distribute this funding.
Right, the question then is, if there's $500,000 that's for Prince of Wales, if we combine with Ketchikan, can they end up having more power and spending it in Ketchikan instead of on Prince of Wales?
So there's talk amongst the Forest Service staff of trying to designate the money geographically. There might be a single RAC for several regions, but the money would be, at least on its face, segregated by region, so you would know how much each geographic area was entitled to. But it's all just talk at this point.
Yeah, I think we should, I don't know, I haven't paid attention as to how hard it is to get the members on the rack, but it would behoove Prince of Wales to try to do that.
And we've already PALCAC sent the message back to Forest Service that for the time being, at least for this year, we'd like the island-based rack, as much of it as we can reassemble together and make recommendations on use of the funding.
Yeah, the Forest Service really struggled with the administration of that even when it was active. So I understand their position. I'm not in favor of it, but if they end up having to do that, I was gonna ask the same question you did, is if they can geographically or by Forest Service district, say, okay, this district has X amount to spend, and then members of that district basically get the lead on the projects and stuff, and everybody just agrees that, we're gonna support, we can work with that. But I would be really concerned about exactly what you said, and I was gonna ask John that myself. We don't need others allocating funding that would be available to us, and vice versa. I don't wanna do that to Ketchikan or anybody else. So I think that would be if they do go to this other method or model, I think that's what we really need to be, talking with our, Forest Service leadership, is that, we want you to allocate this money as it would be, and then, we'll make sure everybody understands that those districts get to spend that money, allocate that money, not spend it, but allocate it. Thanks, John.
So, Mr. Mayor, I guess my concern would be if we're all lumped into however many communities there are. So does that mean that you'd have to form a board from all of those communities?
You mean one word?
One board.
I'm anticipating that's what they want.
They would want one rack per designated area. So it's possible that Prince of Wales, the Prince of Wales districts and the Ketchikan Ranger district might be combined into one rack, or the Prince of Wales, Wrangell Petersburg, or all four of those might be combined into one rack. And there would need to be, in my view, representatives from each of those areas on the rack, as well as some delineation of how much funding was due back to the original locations like Prince of Wales or like Ketchikan. Wrangell Petersburg shows a rack now, and they have since the start.
So Melanie brings up a good point. I would like to see if they're gonna do a regional rack like that, say us in Ketchikan, membership should be based upon X amount of members per Forest Service district, not population, because we'd get whacked on that one.
Yeah, sure.
And that's another thing we would want to make sure that we, emphasize with our Forest Service leadership.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll continue to work on it.
Treasurer.
Sherry, you there?
She was here just a little bit upstairs on the phone. Randy. Yeah, you.
That was fast. I'm submitting my report, and as you see in your report, we have the budget for the first read today in there, and I'd like to answer any questions if you have any.
Your audit completed?
The audit is not complete. We're hoping in the next 2 weeks, and then she would like to do the next one at the end of August.
Any questions for Sharon? Yes, ma'am.
So I noticed a whole bunch of papers here. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it, but I can describe it pretty easy. So on the harbor budget, it looks like it's gotten split up between J.T. Brown Park and the harbor, and that's changed it. And I know there's some big fluctuations in the numbers. I'm assuming that all has to do with splitting those two areas of responsibility or financial accounting.
Well, yeah, in terms of wages, it's divided between the two departments, based on the staff's estimation of how much time they're spent out at the industrial park versus how much they're spending on the harbors downtown, or in town. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but what it looked like I said, there's a whole bunch of stuff here, I don't know if I can go right to it, but it looked like there was quite a deficit in the,
In the harbor
Harbor
portion, there is,
portion.
yeah.
100,000.
and I mean, is that partly because and it looked like there was at least a little bit of positive revenue without, out at the,
Yeah, there's quite a bit of positive revenue at the industrial park. The leases are a big help.
right. I mean, personally, I still look at that as, it's kind of under the Senate purview. You imagine there was reasons to split that up, but it makes one look, way worse than it used to when we had them combined. At least it was close, and it almost looks like we're so far behind, you'd have to do something with moorage or some other revenue stream and harbors to basically make an enterprise account balance. Is there any?
It would make more sense to me to combine the departments, actually. I mean, it's the same staff working on both. In terms of accounting, the numbers are still the same, whether it's revenues and expenses are still the same, whether it's one department or two.
Right.
Given that the same staff's dividing their time between the two, and they're closely related anyway, if we're gonna make a change, I'd be inclined just to call the whole thing docks and harbors, and combine all the revenues and all the expenses under a single department head.
That's what, that's kind of the way it looks like to me. It would be reasonable, because it's all the same people in the same working unit anyways, but what was the?
And I don't recall the reason for dividing it. I don't recall, Michael, if that was a recommendation from the auditor, or if we set it up ourselves that way to, at the time, distinguish between hours spent on that set of responsibilities out there versus the set in town. And at the time, if that was the reason, it may have been a good reason for it. But over time, it's just sort of melded together.
I'm comfortable with figuring out a way to put them together, but whatever, maybe look at what the reasoning was, and if you have suggestions or proposals, I'm comfortable with that. Makes sense to me, personally.
So my only thoughts on that is, I know we separate out the water, sewer, and garbage, even though it's the same guys, for grant purposes, is what I'm understanding. So would that be something that's why we separated that out, as grant purposes or funding at all?
It may have been, we're pretty reliant on grants to get the industrial park started. Even just the clearing and grubbing was grant funded, and the subsequent utilities, as well as the work on the island itself. That may have been the rationale for it. We're less dependent on that now, which, if that's the case, means that we'd have fewer reasons to maintain separate departments. I can ask the auditor about it as well, see if she has a recommendation.
Any more on that? You got anything else? Okay. Aquatic manager.
Good evening. So I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off when I got back into town, so I didn't get a report in. I was in Washington this month teaching to recertify me for my IT. And so in order to recertify an IT, you have to teach a class with another IT, and then we recertify each other. It's a lot of the reason why Alaska does not have ITs. But we managed to get that done this month. On the 23rd, I will be out of town. I will be in Fairbanks teaching a full course and a rebuild course. And then we found out today, like it was literally an hour decision we had to make. We are gonna shut down the pool on the 12th of July. We'll be closed until the 26th, but 3 of us are gonna go to Anchorage and go get our CPOs, which are required to have in order to run the pool. And currently, right now, I'm the only CPO on staff, and my certification ends at the end of July. So there'll be 3 of us after the 13th of July that are certified, which means I can take a vacation if I need to. Because currently right now I can't get too far away from my phone because I have to be able to talk to them about chemical things. We're gonna start our summer schedule starting on Monday, since school's gonna be out, which means we'll have the extra open swim from 1 to 2:30, but we're gonna only do that this year from, Monday through Thursday, and the Friday is open. We've got some interest in doing scuba during the 12:30 to 3 time on Fridays, and so we will get more revenue out of the rental than we will out of the open swim. So it's just kind of a decision that we did. Swim team's not gonna be in the water for most of July, and they'll start back in August, right along with high school swimming. If you know of anybody who wants work, send them my way. Right now, it's just the 3 of us, so we're trying to bust it out as much as we can. We lost 3 last week between, one going to a lodge, one graduating high school, one going to Tennessee. He'll be back though. We can't wait. Other than that, things are pretty much running smooth. Normally when I leave, I come back to kind of some craziness with everything, and that's kind of what happened. But we're pushing through.
Do you think volunteer me?
Oh, yeah, in my sleep.
Still her grandson. He's almost old enough.
Could be, she can feel it until it gets there. Okay, any questions for Ms. Aquatic there? No? Thank you, Jessica. City Clerk?
I submitted a written report, and to note, the next council meeting would be scheduled for June 17th.
Okay. Any questions for the clerk? None? Moving on, City Planner.
Submitted a written report. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? You have harbor meetings coming up? Are you involved with these?
I saw that a couple have been scheduled. I'm off this week, so I haven't had my ear to the ground of what's going on very much, but I did see that a couple of meetings have been scheduled to answer questions from the public about the harbors.
Okay. Any questions for the planner? None? Cool. Fire and EMS coordinator, Minnie?
I'm here. I have a report submitted. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Minnie? No? Okay. Moving on, Harbor Master.
Mr. Mayor, I have submitted a written report. I would also like to add that the ladder down at the city dock that was damaged, we were able to install a temporary fix that should get us through the summer. We need to wait till we get a little lower tide to be able to mount it all the way, but it is in place there now. And looked like Tuesday we would have a tide low enough to get down in there with a skiff and mount a timber behind it to support it. So still working on getting that other ladder built and sent up here, but it'll probably be something that we end up getting installed in the fall when there's a break with the dock there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thanks for taking care of that ladder issue, Hans.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
curious, do we know what happened to the ladder? I mean, other than being damaged?
Yes.
Yes, we do, and the individual is gonna be held, financially responsible for it.
Very good, thank you.
Right, I have a question on, how we're dealing with, why is Quigley buying all of his fish down here on this dock all year instead of buying them over at JT Brown Park? It doesn't make any sense to me that he's running the truck down here to load all of the halibut and black cod and all of the trollers when there's a dock out there at at the industrial park. I mean, we're not getting, is he paying us wharfage or what's going on with that?
Hans, do you know?
Are you asking me, Jim?
Well, you or John, if somebody knows the answer to that, I'd like to know why those trucks are zooming up and down that ramp day after day after day, unloading, Raymond's unloaded 10 times, and other big halibut boats and black cod boats and all the trolling boats, everybody's selling there instead of out at the industrial park. Doesn't make any sense to me to have them impacting that dock.
Yeah, as far as like the dive fisheries go, Gary Atkinson generally purchases out at False Island, and Quigley purchases there. He does have a scale set up inside, and they'll keep their forklift inside the building. And in the past, we have talked about getting him an access permit, charging some rent, and I've got to be honest, I don't think we haven't followed through all the way with making all that happen. So they're just using the dock, so they keep the forklift inside and keep their scale inside. And he also has the water turned on in his name out to the city dock there as well.
Do you think we should be collecting a month or two's rent off him for using that dock? Because we do collect it from SPC. Is he running under their lease?
Their lease doesn't start until the middle of this month.
Oh, God.
Or towards the end of this month. So if the council wants us to pursue rent for him using the building or access permit or something, we're more than willing to do that.
Or wharfage?
Yeah, does he have a free use of the crane, or is he having to use a credit card for that at least, or what's going on with that then?
He should still be using the credit card. The crane is still hooked up to the credit card, Jim. However, I don't know the full, I don't know what happened, but years ago, I guess SPC was the one that installed the jib crane down there. And
That's not the crane there.
I don't know what the agreement was there, if that was just put in for a backup crane or what, but I believe that sometimes they unload using that one, and that one's not metered or anything, so we can figure out some sort of a rate to charge for that, or we can just deactivate it where he doesn't get to use it until SPC is paying to lease the dock or something that's,
So in the city crane in the off season, this time of year, or Hans, is Kenny using a credit card to operate the city crane on the city dock?
Can you repeat your question?
Is anybody uses the city crane on the city dock between the time, outside of the time when SPC is using it? Is it hooked up to the credit card machine? Is that what's required to activate it?
Correct. The crane is hooked up to the credit card machine. However, the little jib crane is not.
Right.
Right, so in the summertime, SPC gets to use our crane as part of their lease procedures?
It's itemized in the cost of the access permit.
Okay.
Mike? One thing I do know that would be, I can see why Kenny would prefer to use this facility other than what's already been talked about is our small crane down here is much quicker than the one out at Falls Island out at Falls Island, and like where you're doing multiple swings to unload, black cod trip or halibut trip. That's a slow crane. It lifts a lot more weight, but it's a slow crane. The one here is quite a bit quicker, so I can see where he would prefer to be down there when he's working.
That's fine, but he needs to be paying wharfage and for using the dock. That's my thing.
I'm disagreeing with that, but I'm just responding to your question about why he might want to be down here.
He's used to operating there because of SBC, so, but we do need to collect some rent or more, or mortgage or something there.
All right.
Need to pursue that. Hans, I got a question for you. Next time you go down to North Cove, take a look at that first fire extinguisher in that can. And look at, Taylor passed that thing a year ago, and the whole bottom of that extinguisher is rusting out. You couldn't even get the nozzle out of the side of it to inspect it today. And they just passed that a year ago. I don't think they're doing your inspections properly.
Okay,
Something you need to look at and see what you think. And
yeah, I know.
maybe
Okay, I
contact
think
Taylor and
they're
ask him what their thoughts are on that.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I think that in the past, there have been some problems with them sending down certain people that weren't doing a real thorough job. I know that Doug Ward has contacted the owner of the business and kind of told him, gave him his opinion, that they needed to increase their service to us, the quality of their service, and I think that, I don't think they've come down since they had that conversation, if that makes sense.
Well, they were here last week. And that can was just passed last year, and I looked at it this afternoon, and it would not pass any inspection in my opinion.
Okay, I don't think Taylor was here last week doing they didn't do our facilities.
Their truck was here. I don't know if they were doing our facilities or not, but if they're passing an extinguisher like that, we need to find out why.
Okay, yeah, I will take a look at that and address that, so.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Anything else?
Okay, thanks, Hans.
Yep.
Miss Librarian.
Mr. Mayor, I submitted a written report. Summer reading program started on Tuesday, and we already have, I think, about 35 people signed up, so that's going well. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
No questions I can see. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Police Chief, RJ.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I submitted a report, be happy to answer any questions. Can't think of anything new from that report other than we're just definitely staying busy.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah, I did get the newest Tahoe detailed and stripped out. It has a radio in it, so it's serviceable if I need it. However, there's still a couple items that I need to install, but I'm working with Public Works on that. As soon as one employee gets done with some leave, then that'll be finished up.
Okay. Well, like I said, if you need any help, give us a holler. Jim says he'll show up and help you.
Oh yeah, so if I need it, I'm gonna definitely ask.
He knows
I'm not
that.
gonna be bashful about that.
You've been drafted.
I already been already.
I know. So have I. So, thank you, RJ.
The troopers, represented, their willingness to help out, when we're a little shorthanded as well. So, I think we're gonna be all right. This is gonna be a matter of finding, the right person that I'm willing to extend an offer to. I'm not gonna hire somebody that's gonna not do the job that I want done. So if I have to work a little shorthanded, then so be it.
Appreciate it, RJ, thank you. Public Works,
Evening, I submitted a report as required. I'll be very happy to answer any questions that you might have concerning that report.
see any bears yet?
Not telling.
Virginia's seen a big one on the beach over there. They're out. But your cans are holding up.
Thank you.
Any questions for Public Works? Okay, thank you, Russell. Recreation,
I did not submit a report, I'm sorry. I was kind of busy getting repaired in Ketchikan. But I will start off by thanking everyone who helped me when I fell in the street, which was Jim C., who held my coffee, RJ blocked off the road. My first ride in an ambulance was a good one, thanks Minnie, and I got to meet the new EMT, and I ruined Tim's breakfast because he came and helped me get out to Alicia Roberts. I'd like to thank them and Peace Health, and they put Humpty Dumpty back together again. I have a broken left kneecap, a broken off right elbow that's been pinned back together, and I'm housebound and going crazy. So if you're in the neighborhood, stop by and talk to me. But now for my report, so thanks everybody. This is a great community to get hurt in. I wouldn't recommend it, but everyone has been super kind. We had a ballet recital last week. Thank you, Julie. It looked very cute. I couldn't go. We postponed the blessing of the fleet because the weather did not cooperate. And that we're going to try again this Sunday at 4. Very fortunate to have hired Miranda Hom, and she is doing volleyball and skating and planting baskets and doing all sorts of great things. So I'm really glad that she's there to be my legs because mine don't work. And the 4th of July is coming up. We've got things planned on the 3rd. We'll have a 10 a.m. fishing derby. We'll have the fireworks that night, an 11 o'clock parade. Thank you, Millie. You are the parade judge, and we appreciate that very much. And then noon, we'll do ballpark activities. We've got a lot more than we did last year. And we're also working on the Craig Kowak King Salmon Derby. And I go for my post-op next Friday, and then I've got 2 weeks of vacation, and hopefully I'll be able to walk when I come back. So that's my story. Are there any questions?
was I right about them broken bones?
Which one? Yeah, my knee was broken and my elbow too. Yeah, did you watch me when I tried to touch my face and I slapped myself upside the head?
Yeah, and I was there when you told me, I don't need to go to the clinic. So yeah, you're okay.
Yeah, that was just before I slapped myself in the face, so.
Yeah.
Every man likes to hear that. You were right, Tim, thank you.
That's what I wanted to hear, thank you.
It's on the record.
Well, get better. Get better.
I'm working on it. I am.
All righty,
Call me
man.
Gimpy.
Any questions for our little recreation gal? Nope. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Parks and public facilities. Are you out there, Doug?
I'm here. I've submitted a written report and would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
One thing I would like to bring up is, there's some big trees out there that's been brought to my attention that are very close to some graves out there that there's a concern about them starting to push up the gravestones and everything else. And Ed Thomas is wanting to either remove those trees or do something with them before they destroy his family's little plot there. We want to put up a totem and repair those steps that are going up to it. Is that something we can consider, Doug?
I think that's something we should consider very seriously. I haven't had that brought to my attention, but in the back of my mind, you can kind of see that stuff's going on there with those trees that are in there and growing, that they could cause problems, so I'll put that on my, agenda of stuff to look at, start getting the game plan to do something about.
Yeah, I remember looking at it last year, and I do know that those trees are gonna start really creating an issue there, and it's something we may have to consider taking them out.
I think you're right, I think so.
Because it's destroying those steps and everything that's going up his family plot there, and it is a concern, and he's wanting to put a totem up there, which I don't see a problem with, as long as council approves it, but, another thing I was considering some kind of a wall there that we could put in maybe 50 or 75 vaults for urns, that at some point we could consider putting that in. Something council.
John and I have been working with an outfit on that exact thing, the columbarium, and we're making good progress on that.
Great.
So with this tree removal and that stairs, the two could tie hand in hand together and taking care of both of those at the same time, I think. So, but there'll be more to report on that in the future. I don't have anything but we are having serious movement on that exact issue.
Okay.
For urns and whatnot. So, and doing something with that bank and the hillside and the stairs, so.
Great, that's good to hear, because
We'll just add the trees into that project.
he's my father-in-law, I could make life miserable, so. Anyway.
I have one question. What's the status on the CTA playground?
The playground equipment that they offered to us?
Yeah.
From my understanding where it stands, I went and looked at the equipment and determined that we would destroy it, trying to remove it and replace it because it's wooden. It's a very nice structure, but I think the city needed to steer clear of it. So as far as my understanding, that's where we're at. We're gonna pass and don't have any other commitment to do anything else with it, as far as I know.
Okay, so you didn't feel we could remove it and salvage it? It would get destroyed?
Yeah, from past experience trying to salvage pre-existing stuff here in the city, Craig, it's difficult. You end up destroying it. You're better off buying new equipment.
Okay, well, you know better than me on that. I just was curious.
Only because I've experienced it firsthand. But it'd be great for somebody personally if they had time to sit and, just do it on their own. But as far as us, I think we better pass.
Okay, any more questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, I really appreciate how nice the cemetery looks and the trail and keeping that little area, what is it called? Where they're removing all of the debris. And the Totem Park always looks really nice, and it makes me proud to be a citizen of Craig when it's well kept.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Doug and Terry's done a lot of work out there. Russell once in a while, but not very often.
It looks great.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the comments because it's difficult for three old guys to do what we do, but we're trying hard.
I did most of the work. What are you talking about?
You did the easy stuff.
I make the mess, you just clean it up, huh?
Yeah.
All right, Doug,
That's
thank
my
you.
job. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Reading correspondence. John has some interesting stuff on this capital fund statement. You guys read that?
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And the market was down today, so it didn't reach 16 million, but it's.
Oh.
Only missed it by 65,000, so. Oh, I was impressed. These guys have done a good job in the past. Okay, I'm gonna move on from Correspondence? Consideration of resolution and ordinances. Ordinance number 736, updating section 3.10 of the Craig Municipal Code.
Move to approve, ordinance number 736.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve number 736, updating the section 3.10 of the Craig Municipal Code. Open for discussion. No?
No, I don't have any. I'm sorry to let you down.
Yes, sir.
I mean, to me, it looks like this has worked out well. John follows it probably as close as anybody. How do you feel about it?
I feel good about it. We're about where I thought we would be when the council agreed to adopt the ordinance to begin with. The overhead cost is still a little high, I think. The commission still charges us it's between 16 and 18%. Their goal, and the commission's made up of members of AML, right? So, I mean, it's in their interest to get the overhead down, and they acknowledge when they first set it up that the initial overhead is steep, and it's still amongst their primary goals is to figure out how to lower that cost. There'll be limits to that because the commission does use a contractor to help collect some of these accounts. But I think over time, there'll be room for them to lower that overhead cost. It's mostly funding that we would not have access to if this provision were not in our municipal.
Right, and that's what I remember. They said that, the initial launch of it was going to take more.
Good. Any more discussion there? All right, we'll do a roll call vote then.
Millie Schoonover,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Julie McDonald,
Yes.
Jim C.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passed. Resolution 21-12, setting the 2021 property tax levy at 6 mils.
Can I make a motion to adopt?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt resolution 21-12, setting the 2021 property tax levy at 6 mils. Open for discussion.
I just say that it's remarkable that we've kept it at the same rate for 30 years and, basically meet the community financial needs, or part of it is this, but pretty good we're able to do that.
Been pretty fortunate. Yeah. Any more discussion on that? Julie?
I'm good. Thanks for checking in though.
Just a roll call too?
Millie Schoonover,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Julie McDonald,
Yes.
Jim C.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, council. Resolution 21-13, establishing a schedule of payments for the payment in lieu of employee health insurance benefit.
Move to adopt resolution 21-13.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt resolution 21-13, establishing a schedule of payments for payment in lieu of employee health insurance benefit. Any discussion?
No.
We've been doing this thing for a while, haven't we?
Yeah,
Millie?
What?
Are you happy?
I am.
Good.
it's a everybody
We'll do a roll
wins
call vote then.
situation.
Okay.
Millie Schoonover,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Julie McDonald,
Yes.
Jim C.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Moving on, ordinance number 734, sale of Craig city-owned title and submerged land to Rodney Payne. Any motions on that?
I would move to approve ordinance number 734, authorizing city administrator to negotiate sale of city-owned property to Mr. Rodney Payne.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve ordinance 734, the sale of city-owned tide land and submerged lands to Rodney Payne. Open for discussion.
In looking at the memo, do we recall what we charged Mr. McCallum for the,
It goes between $2.50 and $3 a square foot.
It's 40,000 square feet there, correct, John?
I think it's yes, I think it's 40,000.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's our appraised value approximately.
Well, this property that is under consideration tonight hasn't been appraised yet. That's still part of the
deal
process going forward. We sold some similar property to an adjacent property owner. Sorry, it's probably been 5 or 6 years. And my recollection is that the appraised value of the property that we sold then was between $2.50 and $3 a square foot, but the property today has not had a new appraisal on it. That would be part of the process moving forward if the council approves the ordinance tonight.
I think that if this amount is, or if the council decides that we're in for this sale, then we should, say appraisal plus 10% or 20% or something for the value. Not just accept the appraisal value, if we add something to it.
My question was going to be, this still has to come back to us for final approval, and it was based on the same kind of idea you have. Making sure that we're comfortable with what we feel is a fair price.
So it should be
So
negotiated.
that would have to come back to us for final approval.
Exactly.
right? Because we never did finish dealing with the AT&T issue, what we were gonna charge for those things out there. And I can't remember how many square feet that was or some of those other ones were, but it seems to me like we're giving those away. This at least is under the water. But again, 5 years from now, the value is gonna double, or, I mean, they're not gonna lose anything if they have to pay us 15 or 20 or 25% above appraised value.
You're just gonna make sure we're consistent, you know, if we
Right.
do whatever plus 10, then that's gonna be what we do consistently, not for,
Well, there's a difference between tidelands and
Real land.
real land, though.
yeah, so but we would need to be consistent in future Thailand sales.
And I do believe this sale should be contingent on that being attached to the uplands, because that way.
Oh, I think we already,
The tax is one unit, it has been addressed.
Yeah.
But
Well, he said he was going
future
to do that.
sales
gotcha.
is what I'm considering, but, yeah.
He has indicated he'd be willing to work on doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, he's already contacted them and they're working on it, from what I understand, correct, John?
I don't know that Sean C. and Mr. Payne have talked yet.
That's-
The last I'd heard from Ed was that Sean C. had attempted to talk to him, but I talked to Mr. Payne last week.
Okay.
And he told me specifically that he would be agreeable to planning the entire part of it, all of it as one project.
I guess I didn't read it carefully enough. It sounded to me like they had talked. But
But Brian had talked with him, and he's the one who said that he was willing to put it on
Okay.
plat, so
yeah, now that I read it,
that takes care of the,
now that I reread it, I see that.
and it's,
Any more discussion on this?
Really asked Mr. Mayor, in the memo, there's some discussion about the council considering either putting some definition to the final price outcome, or considering that the city would pay for the appraisal up front. Again, it's been our practice to have applicants pay for the appraisal, which is often several $1,000s. But they have done so generally with some assurance of what they're going to pay in relation to the appraised value. If the council wants to wait until the terms come back to the council for final approval, then it leaves a lot of uncertainty in the air for the applicant. And so some direction from the council about whether we want the city to pay for the appraisal up front or not would be helpful as well.
So do we want to pick a number now? A percentage?
Over the.
Or have them, and we pay for, or that way he would, if he was still interested, he would pay for the thing.
Ultimately, if he bought the property, he would pay for the appraisal in addition to whatever value was set, or the appraisal would be part of the value on the final sale. If the city pays for it up front. And there was a time when it used to be fairly regular that the city would do it that way. But in the last 10 or 12 years, it's been more of our practice to have the applicant pay for the appraisal up front and the city not pay for the appraisal at all. But again, the price has been fairly consistent for the past 10 or 15 years compared to the appraised values. So there's been some certainty for the buyers when they pay for the appraisal up front.
Right, so that area is in the city limits of Craig, so at this point, because we own it, it wasn't appraised by our guys that come down and do the work for us?
That's right.
Correct.
Because
it's never been sold, so it's never been appraised. And it's not has not been a taxable property, so it has not been included on the list of properties that have been assessed within the city limits.
If it is sold, it'll become a taxable property versus a leased property. The lease price would probably be more, but in the long run, I think that the taxes would outweigh it in the long term. And it would increase the value of that property, which would in turn increase the value of taxes. So that's the way that me and John were discussing it this afternoon, trying to, I'm in the middle. I don't like selling city property unless, like this week, what are we gonna do with it? Sitting there under the water. You're gonna put a fish farm on it, I don't think. So council needs to decide what we think is the best thing.
well, if you just look at the property values
We don't
in
have
Craig,
quorum, right?
I'm thinking that
If I
in the
leave, we don't have a
last
quorum, right? Yeah.
20 years,
If I
the
leave,
property values in Craig have gone up
2, 3, 4.
100%,
10 doesn't count.
at least.
Maybe.
I'm looking back at my different appraisals. So if you were to charge somebody an extra 15 or 20% above the thing, they shouldn't even have any problem at all with that kind of a thing, because it's going to be a break even for them within 6 or 7 years at least, if not. I mean, it makes that entire place is going to be worth so much more money because nobody can do anything else in front of them.
And he has a dock that's gonna add value to his
Right.
property uplands. So. Council? What do you think?
I think Mr. Payne should be given the opportunity to go into this with his eyes open. If the council is
Right.
inclined to
No.
charge a premium on the appraised value, it should just have staff convey that to him
Right.
so they can decide if he wants to go through with it or not.
I agree.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. That's why I think we need to figure out some kind of a number, either that or put him off for another couple of weeks and have more discussion on it, but,
I think we're in agreement on it. I mean, I don't know why we can't form a decision on the percentage right now and just have them proceed with the negotiation at this point. I'm thinking that, like you said, 15 to 20% is not unreasonable. I would be looking at the upper. And he pays for the appraisal. The added value to the property warrants that.
right, and if we were going to do this, it would only be for tidelands that were in front of the owner's residence. We're not gonna sell any other tidelands based on this, because they're way more valuable if somebody's gonna be able to put a dock building on top of our tidelands or something. I mean, that has nothing to do with this appraisal, so we need to, we need to be fair and do the same thing, but it should only be for tidelands that are being sold to someone whose property is the only property impacted by that. Does that make sense?
We could do a covenant that restricts it to just residential use only, not a business also.
Right, but I just don't want to sell any of these. There's a lot, we
Yeah,
still
I know.
own a lot of the tidelands.
Yeah.
We ended up, we gave some away too cheap, I think, but anyway, I do this for the time being until we do something major in the future. That I think 20% is a reasonable figure for this gentleman, because there's nothing else we're gonna do with that piece in front of his house. I think he's getting a steal at 20% above. So if it was $3, it's gonna end up being $3.60, big whoop. So that's the number I'm throwing at you, 20%. Anybody want to go higher?
Mike's gonna outbid you.
So I made the motion, would I have to redo a motion and include this, or is this just part of the instruction to staff?
I guess I would consider it part of instruction to staff. Hearing no objection from the other council members, assume that it's the consensus of the group that staff carry that message forward
Seems appropriate to me.
with authority to negotiate the sale.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And, since city planner has discussed the concept of combining the two, can we include that as part of the sale, the expectation within a year, he would, or a reasonable timeframe, he would do so?
Well, the parcel itself needs to be platted prior to the sale.
Right.
So there would not be any lag time in the parcel getting platted to the other land. That would be, in fact, that would happen before the sale is finalized.
Sure. I'm comfortable with all that. Yeah, I think that's a good solution.
This, what we kind of came up with this afternoon discussing it. Like I said, I don't like selling land.
Does that address anything?
This is under the water.
Yeah, it's almost a single piece of, single use land.
It is, single use, I mean, that's the best benefit for it.
And then we get
And it
taxes.
benefits us in a way.
Yeah, we get taxes on this, so, okay.
That and the upland, because it increases the upland.
Yeah, and once he puts the dock on, it becomes real valuable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. What I was looking at. Okay, want to vote on that?
Roll call, please.
Okay. Feel said.
Millie Schoonover,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Julie McDonald,
Yes.
Jim C.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't even have to vote. Glad that's out of the way. Okay, unfinished business, consider acquisition of garbage truck.
Mr. Mayor, staff provided some backup information for the council's consideration. We're prepared, Russell's here, and we can respond to questions if any.
I just think it's amazing that nobody can make a single axle truck that'll have two purposes. This doesn't make any sense to me. And I look at those trucks in Ketchikan, or the ones down south that have the lift from the front and all sorts of other stuff that they do, and we can't find a truck that does two different things unless we go to this gigantic monster. It's not on you, Russell. I understand there's a limited amount of, so this is not, I just have a hard time that they're not willing to work with people.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think the issue is once you start getting into that kind of specialty type of item, I mean, they're used, but they're not called for a whole lot. And so, I mean, you only have a couple of companies that make these chassis, that are designed for these type of systems. You've got like Peterbilt, and you've got Heil, PACCAR, that kind of thing. And so, unfortunately, it just comes in a dual axle type of system, and the minimum that we can find that's made by anybody is basically 24-yard system, which requires a dual axle type of system. They just don't make a mini system that's, single axle, unfortunately. Not with a combination of, side load, rear load, or front load.
Well, the positives are, by going over to Chelsea, we've, significantly minimized the trash bear problem. That's positive for the community as a whole. The challenge with it has been that it's almost put us into a situation of having a dual system, which, preferably we wouldn't have one, but there's benefits to both systems, and unfortunately, it's hard to align both of them into one system. So, we look at it, and I appreciate the time and effort to look at it. I think we probably just have to go with the kind of the original concept. That's what it looks like to me. I guess the last thing I'd say is we just have to realize the cost of operation of the garbage is, it is going to be higher overall.
At one point, they had mentioned a desire of doing their own garbage service. I'm guessing that went by the wayside?
That was till I got a quote on what it cost to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then they kind of backed off of that.
Okay. No, I agree with what Mike said.
So do we still have we have the approximate bid from the original truck you looked at then, the rear loader, or are you gonna end up putting this out to bid to multiple companies now?
Well, what we did is we went through what they call a Sourcewell program,
Right.
which is a government entity that does the procurement process for us so that we don't have to go out to bid if we don't want to. If we like the specs that they gave to us, then we can purchase directly through BSI, is who this is, which is Bob Sales and Company, or whatever it is. They're the garbage people that are up in Anchorage, solid waste systems, basically. So we don't have to go through a bid process if we choose not to. That government entity did the procurement process, and we're getting the lowest price, available
Right.
for what was spec to us for the rear load truck.
So technically, now, that thing is more than 30 days past due, so now we have to get them to resubmit to us?
I can talk to them. I think, they've been real patient with us. They're checking in with us. They have not indicated, as a matter of fact, they checked in with us yesterday, the finance aspect of it. And then also the sales aspect, they've both checked in with us. They have not indicated that there would have to be a re-quoting of that piece of equipment.
So technically, John, at this point, we could just say go if they'll deal with the bid. Because we had talked before, or during the discussions, we had kind of said we wanted to do it over the 3 years, right? Trying to remember what the total was.
52,000 a year.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That was what
Sounds
I was
about right.
told.
Somewhere in that.
So we,
55.
55.
55,000.
so let's get the show on the road then, and I'd like to authorize, if they'll work with the city and Russell, let's authorize the $165,000 layout over a 3-year period for an rear load garbage truck.
In the days that the side loaders broke down, Russell has to go along and help with the cans, right? Okay.
So was that your motion,
Yeah.
Jim? Okay, I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the purchase of the previous rear load truck that Russell acquired. Right?
There it is. Yeah.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. There you go, Russell.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Council.
And don't forget, you have to help.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll go help you. New business.
So we're putting off the CPA thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the CTA has requested this to be deferred into the second meeting in July.
Okay.
Postponed till second meeting in July. Consider the Craig Harbor Advisory Committee appointment of Ralph Mackey.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Ralph Mackey as the Harbor Advisory Committee appointee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good luck, Ralph.
He's got lots of time now.
Yes, he does. He's happy. Consider accusation. One other thing is a shop truck there. Anybody got questions on the accusing that shop truck?
I have a question for Russell. So if, is Daniel capable of replacing tie rods, brakes, anything else that might go wrong with this truck?
Basic mechanical items, correct. As far as tie rods, ball joints, tires,
Right,
air filters,
right, it's been inspected though, and it looks, you guys have looked at it, you put it up on the
I
rack?
spent some time with it today. We did not have an opportunity to put it up on the rack. It was maintained by Elijah Helms, which was the diesel mechanic. Here he's moving off the island, and so this is why this has come available. This was his service truck. And so he maintained it very well. As far as what I understand, it's only got 50,000 miles on it. We can take a little bit closer look at it, but I did spend some time with it today. There are just a few items, like on the welder, there is a motherboard that, or the PC control board that's gonna have to be replaced on that welder. So yeah, there's, in general, it's in good shape.
So has it been on Prince of Wales the whole time?
It was originally purchased down in California and was brought up probably about, 2 years ago or so?
I don't even think it's been,
Year
maybe a
and
year.
half, Maybe a year.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar with the gentleman who had this truck.
He was the pastor at New Hope Baptist.
Oh,
He's done work on our fire trucks for us in the past.
so it hasn't been in these summer conditions since 2007, that's what I was looking at,
No,
making sure
it's
the
only
frame
been-
and stuff are
It's
good.
at most 2 years, probably about a year, a little over a year. It's been here.
And it does have the fleet side, body, which is, that's one thing that we were looking at this next budget cycle anyway. To protect those tools and to keep them out of the weather type of thing. It does come with a crane system, that's one thing that we've talked about, being able to utilize that crane to lift heavy segments of water line, that 12-inch water line, the 20-foot stick isn't light, it's quite heavy, so, and plus other items. Once we fix the issue with the welder, we'd be able to stick weld on site. It does have an air compressor, that's on this truck body as well. So we're looking at, being able to help us out in the field a little bit more. And it is a 4-wheel drive unit, which is nice, and it is a 1-ton body. So
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we appropriate $15,000 from the Craig Endowment Fund earnings to acquire the 2007 Ford F-550
Sir. Motion's been made and seconded to acquire the chop truck of Elijah Helms, 2007 Ford. You've been discussing that.
I've got one question though. So the $40,000 that's acquired in the budget, since we've only done the first reading, will we pull that out of the budget, or what would you do about that?
Pull it out of the budget, modify the documentation to show the lower expenditure. Certainly, staff, we can do that if directed to. We're not gonna spend that money without coming to the council, certainly. So I'll simply ask Sherry to modify the ordinance documents to deduct the $40,000 transfer and expenditure from the next year's budget.
I just wasn't sure, since we were kind of halfway through the process, how that worked.
Yeah, it'll take a little number crunching, but Millie actually pointed out something to me the other day in the budget that needs to be corrected, so we got a couple things to do.
When the budget comes for the next one, will you be able to highlight those couple of changes?
Yes, did you mean the individual budget? Or in the,
Because doesn't the budget come through for the second reading?
it does.
Yeah, so that I don't have to read the entire thing again.
So,
My question is, can I get a paper one?
yes,
It's like, I still can't figure out how to mark on this thing, so I read all the way through the budget and I took some notes, but what page was
If
that
you
on?
export it to books, it's a lot easier to mark.
Export it to books, that's beyond me. I'm not
Okay, all right,
doing
sorry.
that. Not for the next 3 months.
Yeah, so my request is out of sheer laziness. Can you highlight those changes so that I can easily identify them without having to read the entire thing?
yes.
Because I spent a lot of time reading through the budget. Through name.
Pretty difficult.
That's all the comments I had, sorry, to get us in the weeds.
Perfect.
She's already.
Council comments, yeah?
I don't think we voted though. Tim, do you want to do an all in favor? Is it all in favor?
Voice vote.
Voice
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah,
All in
voice
favor.
vote, but I was sitting here and making sure we didn't have any more questions.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Reading over the recommendations. Anyway, any more discussion on that? None? Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Thank you.
Okay, council comments, what do you got to say, Mike?
John put together a good, good outline of things to bring up with, Senator Bukowski's staff on Saturday. I see one thing I'd like to add to it, I mentioned it before the meeting, and, I'd like to weigh in and say that we continue to believe the Pebble Mines are, not appropriate for the Bristol Bay watershed. We have at least 2 permit holders, based on accrediting, and I know that, numerous people have or do crew on Bristol Bay, so we have an attachment to that area, financial attachment. Just, we don't have to elaborate, we just say that, like so many other people, we do not think that's an appropriate place for that money. That would be my suggestion.
Okay. I have some things to have, but I'm waiting on an email back from the Trolley Association about some.
And it is just staff. Bukowski's not gonna be here, right?
So a couple things on that point. Congressman Young's staff will be on the line, I'm told, 2 staff members. At this point, Senator Murkowski hasn't been told that she's gonna be on the line, so I'm assuming she won't be there. But of course, in the end, it's up to her, so. But at this point, it's her staff from Ketchikan, the state office, director, and I think a couple of people from the DC office. We'll have some on the phone and some here in person.
Will we have a separate one with Sullivan, or have we already done that?
Senator Murkowski is the primary sponsor. So I think her office is just kind of taking the lead on this. Senator Sullivan, I think, is a co-sponsor. But, they divide the work between the 2 offices. And as I said, Senator Murkowski's office is the lead on the side. And actually, I spoke too soon. There is no bill to sponsor right now. There's one in the House, but I don't believe there's one being introduced in the Senate. So while there's no lead and co-sponsor, Murkowski's office is the one sort of taking the charge and preparing eventually for some sort of legislation.
So there's already one in the House?
There is.
Young introduced it.
So it's Saturday at 9.
That's here.
That's here.
They probably don't want me here.
No, I didn't.
I'm gonna be I have a conference that morning, so I'm already Zooming for that. So, but I don't, Mike's got a lot more insight to give than I would, so.
No, because she's on the phone. There's another issue that's gonna come up with the Coast Guard repairing their radio system out here. We don't have very good communications at all. Well, Monday when I was trolling out here, a longliner came in with an injured crew member and trying to talk to Coast Guard and couldn't even tell them what was going on. And because they couldn't guess what was going on, all they knew is there was an emergency. They called 911 and paged our people out at 6 a.m, which had to sit at the dock for 45 minutes. And I was already handling it. The Coast Guard couldn't hear us talking, and they couldn't talk directly to us because their radio systems are down. And they haven't repaired them. We wrote a letter 2 years ago, John, about this, and it has not been addressed yet. Yet they can fly a helicopter on the moon, but they can't fix the goddamn radios in Alaska. Mars. Yeah, Mars or whatever. But yeah, this is getting ridiculous. They paged us out, and it was already set up for the taxi cab service to take this guy up, and I'd set it up through dispatch to have a physician meet him at the clinic. And then Coast Guard got involved in 911 dispatch and launched DMS at our expense because they couldn't hear what was going on. And this radio issue is becoming a joke, and they want to come out here and check us on the boat for face masks and put a cruiser out there to check us out just to make sure we're wearing face masks, and they can't fix the radios. This is ridiculous. So, go ahead.
So I also did a little work on it this week, although I didn't accomplish anything. I was trying to. I called the Coast Guard 2 days ago and got a hold of the right people and that are responsible for, you know, the search and rescue and for the high sites and communications. And I was talking to one person and looking for another one. He said that person's not in today, but I'll leave a message for so-and-so and they'll get back to you. And they have people listening in on a senior person jumped in on the call and started to talk to me about it. And I said, I'd like to, you know, be able to talk to somebody and learn a little bit more about the kind of the history of the high sites and where we're at with them right now. And he said, well, then that would be so-and-so, and I'll have them get back to you. And I give him a number and they haven't got back to me. So I'm gonna blister some ass tomorrow. I mean, because this is exactly what we're afraid of.
This is what we wrote the letter about 2 years ago.
Exactly.
And this is, and now, this was a 55-foot longliner coming in. You know we had good radios. Now, can you imagine a skiff out here trying to call for help on 16 on a handheld? And how many people are out here doing that today, fishing? I'm sorry, they couldn't get help. And these guys could not hear us. And I mean, Steve Merritt's pretty well equipped on his boat with radios. He actually could hear them a little bit and could relay to them kind of what was going on while I was setting this up to get them to the clinic. And they still interfered and got it confused. I got on the radio and chewed them out. I was pissed. But we need to figure out a way to address this either through the senators or through another letter to the commander or Ketchikan or Juneau, I don't care where, but this was out of Juneau.
Right.
So whatever the council thinks, but this needs to be addressed.
I'm gonna make a call in the morning, early determined to try this again in the morning. I mean, I think the Coast Guard was a little bit like, uh-oh, you know, we're gonna get peeled on this. I actually,
So now you have
I
something
wanna
to
help
deal
them.
with.
Well, I'm frustrated with what happened, but I look at this as we're trying to help them because my position on this, and this is what I would tell Senator Bukowski staff if I were in charge, is that this particular responsibility needs to go back to the Coast Guard, which it used to be. And I talked to about 3 people, and the first guy acknowledged everything I said. You know, it got contracted out. Somebody had this bright idea that the private sector would do it better than the public sector, the Coast Guard, which was a complete joke. This is what we're left with now as a sub-standard station. So I want to suggest strongly that this goes back to Coast Guard responsibility, and they'll upgrade the equipment. And they need new high sites anyways. They've already acknowledged that.
They need new equipment. And I talked to John Moods about that, and he was one of the individuals that was on standby down there for 45 minutes at 6 in the morning on his day off. And he said that their equipment is so outdated that it's not even worth upgrading, that they need new equipment. And this is why the problem exists. And like I said, they can come out here and look for face masks, but they can't fix their radios. So
I'll make a call again in the morning, try to do this again. Hopefully I can get further in the call, and I'll do a little short memo to staff and to the council. And then, I mean, that's my thought, is that we need to be telling our legislators that this has to go back. This is a public safety issue. This isn't some private
They
money
need
issue.
to
This is
refund the
public
Coast
safety.
Guard with that portion of
And
money.
it has to go back to the Coast Guard and the sites out, you know, it isn't just Southeast, this is all of coastal Alaska.
All of coastal
these high
Alaska.
sites need to be updated.
because Icy Straits is sitting up there right now with very little coverage at
Well,
all.
there's places out in Shane, I think they're experiencing the same thing.
They all are. And we were on the tail end of it. We got hammered with it the other day.
Right.
And I mean, I have this all documented. I wrote it down on the boat, the time of the morning it happened, the name of the boat is Star Wars 2, and got them to the clinic, and they had the guy in the clinic and out of there in an hour and a half. They were on their way by 9:30 out of there, because I walked down the dock to my other boat, and they were just leaving. And I talked to the captain on the radio, and he said, man, he said, they had us fixed in an hour and a half and out of there.
Sometimes, so talking to the senators is a good idea after you make your call, but another idea is Ketchikan Daily News. I mean, try and get some news coverage and then forward that on to the Coast Guard and senators, if you have to.
UFA would be, would be another organization. They're already on this, though. I talked to the Gilda Association here about 2 months ago.
Controllers are on it too, 'cause I talked to,
He feels exactly like I do. This needs to go back to
Yeah.
Coast Guard responsibility.
I talked to Matt Lowry and Amy on the Controller Association, and they said the same thing, this needs to be addressed. So we're, you know, and like I said, us commercial boats have a little better radios than those poor guys out here in a 16-foot lung with a handheld.
Yeah.
Those guys are very much at risk. And these guys aren't fixing it.
And like I said, I'll see what I can find out tomorrow. I'll do a short report to everybody, and I think that's what we all agree with. We can
Write another letter
well,
and talk to the senators.
talk to the staff about that.
Yeah, that's just something that really pissed me off the other day, because I'm sitting there dealing with it.
I was literally thinking to myself during this call yesterday, you know, it's inevitable that we're going to have a
It
problem.
just happened. That's what I thought 2 years ago, and me and John sat down and wrote the letter to them about that issue. And so it has happened. There it is.
There it is. Okay, well.
So, thank God it was just a guy's hand and not something more severe.
Right.
So, yeah, irritating. So yeah, if you talk to them, just let them know. We got it. So, okay, any more council comments? I know, Judy, you're ready to go home, right? Millie's falling asleep over here. Hurry up.
I'm going back to the pharmacy, but
Stay safe, everyone, and I make a motion that we adjourn at 8:05.
second.
Motion been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?